Everybody, please acknowledge that you understand that this is being recorded. Hit got it. Hey, aloha mai kako. Welcome to Mahiʻai and Lawaiʻa, Kukulu Kumuhana, presented by Ana Kapukini Kon. My name is Nick Kalamakani Francisco. I'll be your facilitator. We also have our moderator and our tech whiz with us today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Aloha kako, I'm Christy David. I will be your moderator for today's session.
And my name is Heidi Waiwai, and I will be controlling all of our tech today. Mahalo.
And we got her spotlighted. Great. All right. So I'd love to introduce our presenter for today. Her name is Ana Kapukini Kon. And so Ana, aloha and welcome.
Aloha.
Could you explain to us, share a little bit about you and who you are and what are some of the cultural practices that you continue to learn in and grow and practice?
Sure. Kupa makumukai. Inu kabaya kanea. Kabaya kaniu, kabaya ka ava, kabaya ka ua. Eia no mapunai. Kupa makumukai. Inu kabaya kanea. Kabaya kaniu, kabaya ka ava, kabaya ka ua. Eia no mapunai. Kupa makumukai. Inu kabaya kanea. Kabaya kaniu, kabaya ka ava, kabaya ka ua. Eia no mapunai. Aloha mai kako. Yes, I am Ana. It's an oli that was made with our children, the Kukulu Kumuhana, many years ago. But it speaks about who we are of Puna. It speaks about the Vaya Kani, that we drink the Vaya of our being, the greatness of who we are. And it also gives us imagery of our connections to our Kūpuna, of the sun at sunrise. And it happened in a festive occasion with our keiki. When Kukulu Kumuhana means pooling of physical, mental, spiritual strengths that we bring. And so Kukulu Kumuhana was also an organization or a program of people, teachers, in 1989, 90, and that were gathered. And they're great leaders today in our community. However, Kukulu Kumuhana at that time was a program to build practice in our kids. So the systems that were here was in servicing our kids in education and Hawaiian things. It wasn't, our kids wasn't getting their cultural identity. A variety of us, some has passed, has gathered. We created Kukulu Kumuhana, and after 3 years together in Waipio Valley, we branched out to our own districts, Kukulu Kumuhana Opuna, and myself and Lei Kale Mamahu continue to ho'oko the kuleana Opuna, and we're now 30 years of doing our program, or Hawaiian, I want to say practitioner program, in educating our kids in Puna. So that only comes from that, a time, a place, and a morning at an Ava ceremony. And that part where I go, was our youngest keiki that was probably 2 that drank Ava, and his name was my son Hamakua. He finished and he said, after he drank Ava. So it really, Kukulu Kumuhana in many aspects, I think, in general, when we talk about Lawena, I think these are some of the things. And Kukulu Kumuhana means many things. It also means gathering of prayer, gathering of pulling our energies and our mana together so that we can create better things for ourselves, or sometimes healing for people. We pray for our Kūpuna, we pray for our ohana, and how together as a combined groups of people can focus on the great intent. And that has always been the forefront of my knowing and learning and creating curriculum. However, I am born of Kon family. My fraternal father, his name is Norman Kon, and his father is Clarence Kon, but they called him Ducky. And my grandfather was a very implemental in my life. I was considered the apple of his eyes. At birth, he took me around and he nurtured me and taught me a lot of things. And I think about how to be he had 16 brothers and sisters. My dad has 7 in his family as well. So I was raised around the village. And you know what goes on is, you know, you're gonna get yells from one, you're gonna get yells from the auntie and the uncle, and so forth. However, my grandfather didn't allow much of that from his kids. However, I was able to travel with him, be with his brothers and sisters and family. So they were fishermen. They were very great fishermen on the island of Oahu. A lot of net, a lot of diving, a lot of things. You know, diving the net, taking out the fish that we didn't want in the net while it's laying net. We'd be swimming out the buoy. All these different things was pretty much some of the great memories I have.
Kind of how you were raised, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
And you know, at that time, sometimes you don't like, but then at the same time, you have to, you know. Then my dad too is a fisherman and hunter, so you have to carry the bag, and then then you have to carry the backpack. And you have to boil the water when he caught the pig, and you know, so a lot of things was just something he did. I never thought about if I want to or not. A lot of it is you got no choice, and it's part of you being in the family in the ohana. But that was great. I don't. My dad's also did his regular job. He's a firefighter and retired a fire chief on the federal. But he had to maintain the bills. But at the same time, he's Hawaiian Chinese, so it was cheap to go to the beach and go to the movies. However, I spent most of my life outside. It's not at the beach. We're up in the Mauka. We're not canoeing something in the ʻāina. We're doing. My mother, she's a homemaker and educator. She's an awesome leader in herself. She tended to the home, then later went to college, and she's a psychiatrist and took up in substance abuse and things. But her mother, my grandmother, she was the matriarch of the family, and I was her namesake. So I got gifted her name, and so I also got gifted some of her ways and the honor of who she is. So she's a beautiful singer. She tended to the household. Her too had many brothers and sisters, and her house was always the gathering house for my mom and her siblings. So I was raised in a similar, like my dad, but they too were hunter fishermen. They gathered, and they were pretty much kind of making imu and having the parties. And I think for every Hawaiian family at that time would have that somebody in the kitchen. So this is my grandma, and we love to eat. And my grandma's a beautiful singer. She sang with many musicians, but she was the person home for me.
Kapukini.
And she is of Kapukini, yes.
Oh, right on.
Her name was Primrose Mahealani Kapuai Ma'ele. I later married Potaro.
Oh.
So she also her grandfather was Kapukini John Kapukini.
Oh.
I express and honor that name because the ʻāina that we live on and we are at today is of the responsibility and the kuleana that our ohana, our Kumu Ana Kapukini had mālama for us today. So I'm very fortunate to be at home in Puna and on that ʻāina, and now it's on my watch, and it's a bit different. However, I'll do the best I can. That's all. So growing up was that pretty much who I was, and then so growing up and being Hawaiian was all the time. There's no difference. You're in the ohana and you're nurtured by your family. I think we have gifts and we have different things. However, our Kūpuna knew what every grandchild or child came to be and what their traits were. So I was fortunate to be nurtured that way. I was fortunate to go home to ohana. If it's not my mom, my dad, my grandma, my grandpa, my uncle, my auntie, somebody was there to nurture that parts of us. So I mahalo them today. I mahalo them for giving us the love and the aloha. So if there's anything that on both sides, and as my growing was to have aloha for all things, all people, even for those that need help, to support Kokua, and always to have that in ourselves, and be proud of who you are, and be proud that you are Hawaiian. And that was very important to us, both sides of my family. So, yeah, mahalo.
Yeah, so it sounds like you really were living, in a Hawaiian way, connected with ʻāina, and you had a strong foundation from your ohana that taught you about respect and about many just of the things, just Hawaiian life things. You guys were immersed in cultural practices, and a lot of them weren't lost. So how fortunate. So being that your ohana was such a foundational part of your upbringing and really the core values that you carry now, what other kumu have you had along your journey, and what did they teach you? What did you learn from them?
I think too, growing up, I remember this moment with my grandma, and she used to go to a Hawaiian church. She was raised Catholic. She was Sacred Heart School. She went and was a Catholic. However, she always knew that the spirituality and the connection with whatever akua that she chose was good. And she told me when I was young, and she said, I want you to know that you can always pule. You have every opportunity to have a relationship with your akua. Yeah, your own personal. Nobody have to pull it for you. Nobody have to take care of that part of you, because you need to create and cultivate that. And that stuck with me most of my life. My grandfather, my fraternal side, he would never go to church, but every time he said, okay, let's go to church in the backyard. We would be going in the backyard pulling weeds, and for him being amongst the gods outside the yard was that church for him.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, so I went to Mormon church. I went to many different churches, and it's all great. Yeah, but the spirituality of the connection. So even as I then left the house or went to college, I then was fortunate to meet with other Kūpuna. And my first year in college, I met this great man, and his name was Ed Kanahele, and I had him for history. And he said, I wasn't the greatest student. I was just coming out of high school and first year in college, and kind of kolohe. And I was hitting a D, I think, halfway in his class. And he said, anybody need extra credit? And I was like, yeah, I need extra credit. Yeah, please. He said, okay, well, go and look up Kaho'olawe and look at what the issues are going on right now. And do some research, write me a paper, I give you extra credit. And I said, shoot, I can do that. So I did that, turned it in. He's like, good job, right on. And he said, okay, how's about more extra credit? I was like, really? He's like, yeah, take this testimony and give your testimony to at the county house and share your thoughts. And I'll be there. I'll give you extra credit. I said, oh, that's easy. So I went there. It wasn't that easy because I'm a bit nervous and found I never have spoken in light of something such. And so I went. He was there, and I did my testimony. And he said, afterwards we came outside and we went outside. He said, awesome, you got your extra credit. I said, awesome, thank you. However, I didn't know after the weekend that he's setting me up for something. Now I look back at it, and he told me after the weekend, hey, come see me after class. So I went to see him after class. He said, oh, you want to go to Kaho'olawe? And then I was like, oh, wow. Wait. He said, oh, wait. What kind of Hawaiian you? And I was like, what do you mean, what kind of Hawaiian me? I'm always Hawaiian, 24/7. I was born Hawaiian. I was raised Hawaiian. I live Hawaii. How much more Hawaiian am I going to be? To me, it was a stupid question. But he just said, okay, right answer. I said, right answer. And he said, well, you let go Kaho'olawe. And I said, yeah, shoot, in college, I have kids. That's nothing to lose. But I always had that curiosity of what is out there, what is going on in Hawaii. So I went. I said, yeah. Then he said, come to my house Wednesday, so I can help prep you. So I went, and little did I know what prep was. Probably I thought at the time was pack my bag, get my flashlight, and different things. However, then he started to teach me an oli, and we were going over from Makahiki. And he started to to now, to me, it's gifts. Share with me some of the things that's going to go on, and what are we doing over there to create a relationship with the ʻāina and develop ahu and different ceremonies for myself in those times of my learning a deeper level of culture and the spiritual aspects and things about culture, and eventually evolved to that. So he's a great mentor for me through my early college years. At the same time, he got me to do some EISs that he was in and started to advocate for a lot of restoration and land situations in Hawaii. He was a very advocate for restoration of not just ʻāina, but also how to engage kanaka into the space. So at the same simultaneously, I worked in Ina Kanaka Foundation was started, and I started to work in the field and on the team of ASO people, and out there and work with the foundation and develop what was now become ʻāina-based education. Back in the day, we're doing things. Kukulu Kumuhana was going to try out the kids, and then we're developing space and place for to get our kids back, to get our families, our communities back to ʻāina through restoration of a lot of our wahipana and lo'is and waipi'o and fish ponds and loko'i'a and kaukaha, and at the same time build curriculum and K-12 curriculums for educators to be able to have it in our DOE, and then the movement of charter schools. So it was a really fun time in that time, and the resurgence, and it's been my now lifelong passion to how to integrate ohana and community and as much as we can to build what we call today pilina, or a relationship with ʻāina and kai and the elemental forces that are about us. Also spent a lot of time at Kaho'olawe during this time. Kaho'olawe had great kupunas there to be amongst, and that were island-wide, and get to share similarities of practice, similarities of, from the simplest thing as imu, when you get 5 different islands trying to make one imu their way. It's pretty interesting.
Everybody got their own style.
Yeah, we would light them like this, and then stack the pohaku like this, and then we got to pull it first, and this guy just turn. I mean,
that's a perfect example of ohe pau ka iki ka halau o
kahia. And I learned lots of. It's been a good, nice over 10 years, but there on island to do restoration, to be able to also be there at the transition of when it was still bombing, when in the transition to then move to the Kirk and that time. So it was a very the resurgence of Hawaiian things was really, really intense, because it was filling a gap of probably my parents' generation and the push of their parents' generation, and at the same time the start of immersion schools and olelo and the charter schools and ʻāina-based education, and really at the forefront of a movement that today I can reflect and think, yeah, like awesome.
Yeah.
And awesome. But Kaho'olawe has also reared me in a way to see different perspective, but to really have better, you're on an island with only 7 of you or 10 of you, and all you got to do is listen to your kupuna. And myself has really helped me to better understand what or who we are and what our kupuna was, without having them physically there. And but it was a awesome times. And so today I kind of try to bring back and see the similarities of different places and spaces, and being able to help restore ʻāina to a place that is viable for our community and viable for our kids in every way, in practice, in spirituality, in who we are, and creating lifestyles that are better help our people or all peoples.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were really fortunate not only because of the strong foundation from your ohana, connected and always around ʻāina and the values and all the practices you're exposed to. Sounded like you really had like some transformative learnings being around your kumu, Uncle Ed, and the experience at Koho'olawe, and that's kind of shaped you and your experices with either Kanaho'ole Foundation, and I know in Waipio Valley with Uncle Kia when you was back there.
That is like my passion. Kalo and Anakarai, and that's why I love Auntie Paul too. I had to withdraw from her class, and that was like the worst thing you can ever do to a kumu. And but I spent some time in Waipio Valley, and I took a liking to Kalo, and she said, "What? Nobody withdraw from my class." I said, "I know, but," she said, "Where you been?" I was in class for 2 weeks. I said, "In YPO doing Kalo." She said, "You like to do Kalo?" I said, "Yeah, I love it. I love working with Kalo. I love, learning about it." And I spent some time with Kia Franda, and he had me, and he taught me all about Kalo, And then so she said, "Okay, well, one thing, if I sign your paper, you go back down there, you be the best Kalo farmer you can, and then I'm going to sign." And I did. And then a year or two later, the ʻAina Kalakaʻole Foundation had some lands that were restoration, and I then became the caretaker for Waipio and Napo. So, sometimes our kupuna, they just set you up and you don't even know it, but they know. However, Halo is a passion of mine. I understand Halo when you get to understand in our olis and in our things. It tells us, it speaks to us, and the importance of in Haloa and in the Oli. Share it, maybe.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And it goes, "Kapala ko I kone no makahao kalola o halo hanau mai he kiki o kalamai. Hoiho o akia ia hoho ku kaleni o hanau mai ka akia kiki moa. He kiki alu o halo naka ina maki ua kiki alu la. Kanu ia I holo mawaho ke kalo I lale ka lepo iho. Ulu mai ua kiki la kalono ka la o ua kalala ua kapa ia o lau kapalili o ka hao ua kalola o haloa. Hanau mai he kiki hou. Kapala ko inoa ma ka hao ua kalala o haloa. Nana mai ko nea po o haloa ho I. And just that alone, and our connection to why we became so passionate, is in so many layers to understand the connection that we have to ʻāina. Why my part as a kanaka to Haloa, and Haloa to the ʻāina, and the ʻāina to the akua. And in that very simplest form of understanding has made me very passionate about aloha ʻāina. And the things, and then it led into me having to work with Great Kūpuna to see that same passion in them, and also the dedication and motivation to share and teach our children. And so I have a great passion. I'm very dedicated to Kukulu Kumuhana and the youth of Hawaii. It's also Ike and bunch of data and a bunch of things that help us connect to ʻāina, and therefore it is something I think I'm gonna do for the rest of my life.
Well, mahalo for sharing that Oli. I'm going to ask just for, we have people from literally around the world with us today, and who will be viewing these educational videos. So could you just explain just briefly, you mentioned Haloa Nakalau Kapalili, and you did an Oli in relation to that. Would you just briefly explain what that Oli was saying, and maybe just a little bit of its significance?
Okay, yeah, so this Oli talks about Wakia being sky, Father, and the vastness of our akua above us. And it talks about Ho'ohoku Kalani, the stars and the elemental things that it is. And together, in the time of the akua, they need to get together and produce a kanaka, a human born, a kanaka. And then when they did, the baby was stillborn, and alu, and they kanu there and planted in the ʻāina, and out came the hollow of the kalo plant. And then from that, as they got together again, because they still needed the kanaka to mālama, that kuleana of ʻāina and the things. And therefore, that second born, which was the Hawaiian kanaka Hawaii, that ate and consumed the kalo. However, that's the literal forms, but in imagery, it gives us the notion of our connection to who we are as people, and more so people of Hawaii, because it's in our olelo, it's in our oli, it's been passed through us generations. So it speaks many things to us, but at a very simple way to understand my relationship as a kanaka to ʻāina, and my relation to the ʻāina that's connected to the akua, the elemental things that we live by. And in practice has developed the process to continue and cultivate these relationships, and through ahu, through pule, through ceremony, through different things as we go forward.
Oh, mahalo. So that oli is explaining our connection as Kanaka Maoli Hawaiian people to our staff of life, Kalo, which is actually our older brother, and it connects us to not only our older brother but to the land which sustains us and to the elements, the akua that created this land. So also,
and we consume it, yeah. So we consume the kalo, we consume the water. That was then, got the rain and got the sun of the akua, and then we consume it, we eat it, and then we become it, yeah. And then we nurture that, and therefore it's important.
Yeah, mahalo for sharing that with us, and I really appreciate that you are continuing to share that our mo'okuauhau, our genealogy, and to teach that. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what you're currently doing and how you are sharing that, with Keiki, and what are you currently working on? What is your current work?
Awesome. So Uncle Ed too, he was the founder of Namakahalua Waikio. Today I'm currently the president of our nonprofit, and the nonprofit he left behind. We're very much focused on Hawaiian practicing skills, Mahiʻai restoration of most things Hawaiian. And I say most things Hawaiian because everything in Hawaiian, if you're hula, if you're a mele, or if you're la'au, it connects us to ʻāina. You need your implements if you're doing wa'a, everything's come from the ʻāina, and how we connect to those things. So that's what I currently do. I gave up my 40-hour job to focus just on this. I still do these things on the side of my 40-hour, but today I do that. I also have some family ʻāina and kuleana we take care of, and then we continue to do Kukulu Kumuhana and different things. Yeah, it's just awesome.
You mentioned your work with Uncle Ed's nonprofit. Could you say it again?
Yeah, Namakahalua
Waipio. So I know that you are currently working on some ʻāina at Pohoiki. Yeah?
Yes.
And it's next door to some ʻāina that's very significant to you. And we have a video to kind of introduce that. So
Awesome.
I'm going to have our tech team get that up.
Cool.
And I believe there's no sound. So if you could just explain to us, what are we looking at? What is this place? And what are you currently doing in it?
Okay, cool. Awesome. This is Pohoiki. We're looking at Pohoiki on the left side. Recently, the 2018 flow that we had in Puna has flowed to the far side of Pohoiki Bay. This Pohoiki, and that has been filled up by sand. And this farther area on the other side of this ahu is Keahialaka. It's the ʻāina of my kupuna. We're a fisher family. My mother's mother, on the back, my maternal side of the family has been the Kūpuna ʻāina. So we're fishermen. Their fishing village. It's our fishing village that are now we're going through different things on the Kahialaka side. But on Po'oiki, Namakahaloa has become the punk stewards. The ʻāina belongs to the county of Hawaii as a park. However, we became punk stewards recently to restore that space of Po'oiki. There was a fishing village. There's a boat ramp that has been succumbed by black sand from the lava flow. A lot of things that are going on currently there, restoration, and talk about our boat ramp. Po'oiki Bay at one time from the early 1900s and all the way prior used to be mooring space for about 40 ba'as and ohana on the coast from Opihikau towards Kapoho. It was like the best spot for the ba'a to come in and go out. It also, we've had, my ohana took care of a lot of the Opai'ula ponds along the coast, on the Oneloa and further towards Kahuwai, that's no longer there. We're in Kahuwai, Ahalanui, and these areas that was covered by the lava. However, we have just a few more Opai'ula ponds left, and we're doing a lot of restoration there to bring back those Opai's ponds and continue to do some of the practices there. I'm very happy through the last 7 years working on different ʻāina and different spaces to do restoration around the state. I'm happy today to be at home somewhere that's really close to me. Never in my life I thought this day would come, but so it's good. The red house there is the house at Pohiki Park is my Kūpuna, Mary Hale, and she was married Kapukini Hale, and it was her house, and it's still there. My family still take care of that house and mālama. However, the county has acquired some of the spaces around, and the state has acquired the kuleana and the space of the boat ramp. Together, try to work hand in hand, and we, the nonprofit, have the 26 acres next to us, my family, to me, on Kahialaka. So we try to work in partnership today to kind of bridge the learning and work together to sustain the space and the resources and understand what's important and how we need to behave in the space. Yes, it's a county space. Yes, it's a public land, but there is still the essence of ohana and community still there, and not just my ohana. And what I was told by my Kūpuna that this space was taken care of and mālama by all the families around this coast that used to come out of there. So even in some of the paperwork we had, some of the families had agreements into certain Opai'ula ponds that they would take care in exchange for having to gather their bait. And so they all was welcome to more the canoe in Po'oiki Bay, even though my Kūpuna and my family still lived in that space and mālama the space. It was awesome because everybody knew their kuleana and everybody had kuleana to the space because it was a viable resource. But at the same time, it comes with kuleana and behaviors that are to sustain us. Yeah, we talk about to be waiwai. How do we be wealthy and be sustainable? There is a kanawais, a law of the land that we must maintain so that we can thrive and continue to thrive. And so it's important, even in practice, for me today to share as much as I can to understand that there is a way, there is a law that we have to maintain. Even in living in Waipio Valley, you cannot just take water from the kahawai, but because everybody else thrives on it. But you take from the kahawai and you bring it to the awai, into your farm, to the makawai, into the lo'i, then it has to go back by law. You have to put the water that you don't use back to the ho'ibai. And the kaho'ibai takes it back to the mainstream. And if farmed correctly and do lo'i correctly, the water then gets oxygenated while it's going through the lo'i, and then we're now putting it back. So the kanawai is really there in our minds to, if you take something and use a resource, like in that case, water, you must put it back exactly the same, if not better. Yeah. And just like when you grow up, you go to somebody's house, and you be there, you take care of it, and then when you leave it better than it was. And it's a, yeah, in how we drive. So, and what kuleana is. So different things. And recently, because of the flow too, we've been having a bit more traffic. Yeah, what was Pohoiki Bay? There were all bulldozers, big rocks and boulders, and you could never walk on the sand to Kahialaka to our side, but the public park was on this side. However, if you wanted to surf on that side, you would go by board. Since the 2018 flow and the sand, it's easier to track over into our fishing grounds. And so we have some conflicts, and it's a bittersweet thing for us and our ohana over there, because of at least 2/3 of our reef and coral is now under sand. But it's a beautiful, beautiful beach, beautiful things, and we just do different. Yeah, we mahalo the sand. We love it, but it did bring us traffic. And so some years ago, right after the flow, we then constructed our ahu. And the ahu is to give note that outside that ahu in the ocean, or 300 yards, is our ko'a, where we still feed our kai, and offer the lai. The lai is kalai kahuna, but the ahu is also in an understanding that even back in the time of our Kūpuna, in order for you to enter our space, or Kiahialaka, that space, you had to ask permission. And then if permission was granted, you could go and you could holo holo. If you gather things from the ʻāina, you would then declare what you got, and then the ohana would say, yeah, okay, or I'll take this, and this is in exchange for what was given. And those kinds of understanding needs to be done and continue today. And so we try to implement the best we can those things. The ahu that we created has a lot of things to it, not just a boundary, because ahus are boundaries, but also it gives significance, idea to how a different space. And I've had a lot of characters in my life, in my last 3 years of my life, dealing with different ideas or people and how to enter a space. And I've even had one of the guys said, "No, I can't go over there." I said, "No, you cannot. Unless." He said, "No, I Hawaiian, I can go. You like see me go?" Then I said, "Well, you should ask permission." So I was like, got into a kind of a heated argument, but to make him understand that you don't have kuleana. My Kūpuna took care of this, paid taxes, they mālama it, they gave respect, we take care of the trees, we make sure nothing, no poison, you make sure that things are kept in a certain way, and it takes kuleana. So if you don't have kuleana in that space, and if you're not reciprocating the aloha to the ʻāina, then for me, as I grew up, then you don't belong over there, you're maha'oi. Yeah. And so those are the things that I hope, even in my teachings and learnings, to show people and demonstrate that we have kuleana to ʻāina. We also have to have respect for what was there many years, and why certain things are done a certain way. Is to mālama the kanawai, so it can be good for all of us.
Oh, I'm sorry for those out there who don't olala Hawaii. What are kanawai?
A kanawai is like a land, it's a law, and it speaks to what everybody will abide by. So
The rules.
The rules.
Oh,
and the
right.
kanawais are also like rules, and it also speaks to not the rules of mankind, but the rules to the ʻāina and the resource. Yeah, because if I don't take care of the fish at this koa, if we don't make sure that people are cutting down trees, then we're not gonna have we're not going to live, actually. Because our resource goes down, our practices go down, then we start to then do other things. However, there's a process to mālama. There is, yes, it's great to mālama ʻāina, and then we get into practitionership, talking to, and our behaviors on ʻāina. There's a commitment, and the commitment requires responsibility, and then that it's awesome. Nothing. And I hope that we all can get to there. Yeah. And then not just for the moment or just for this day, but as much as we can in our life. It's a lifestyle. It was never, hey, today this or, but it's every day as a person or kuleana and ʻāina to have it in your mind. And just like your house, even though you're not home, you're thinking about your houses and safety, your family, your things, yeah, where your mana is and how to nurture that. Same with ʻāina. ʻāina has mana. It was cultivated for me and my ohana generations. Therefore, now that I'm in the seat to mālama, it's my kuleana. And when it's your kuleana, you make sure that the kanawai, that the rules are set. And even though in today policies and different practices of different understandings, come into play, you still have to understand and have respect to that, to mālama, the energy or the mana of the space, and how to do that.
So it sounds like through the changes of time, both after the 2018 eruption with the changes of the ʻāina down there, Pohiki and Kehialaka, all this sand that's been created, it has changed the ʻāina in that there's access, and there are people who are entering, maybe doing not so good things, and they don't understand this concept of this was ʻāina that was cared for. The opaiula ponds were tended to and were shared reciprocally with people to exchange, yeah. And
yes,
without that connection to ʻāina, and the way that we have all become so westernized in through the course of time, we really have a lot of people need to work on understanding how we behave, yeah? And that concept of Lawena, the behavior, how do we conduct ourselves when we go to a new place? So it sounds like these changes have been kind of challenging. Well, from your perspective, what are some of like the fundamental basics that like Hawaiians or people all around the world should know about when you go to a new place? Like, what is kind of the fundamental like basics of Hawaiian Lawena, or the way you interact?
Yeah, I think some of it could be different things. However, when I grew up, my aunties and uncles, just somebody new come, they go, "Oh, who's that? Where are they from? Why are they over here for?"
Yeah.
But those questions is important as I grew up to understand. Even in today, Waiwai, who are you? Yeah, and what they come with, and I think my aunties will do it well, and because they have the extras, right? The ugly, the handsome one, what he got to, but it's true when you think about everything in life, and energetically as well as physical things, we have to nurture it, yeah, and so. My perspective to a lot of things, even for my own kids. If you know more kuleana over there, then no go. If you wasn't invited there, no go. And then when you go over there, make sure you help wash the dishes, clean the house, and rake the yard, or because it is known. It was taught to me when I was young. It was taught to me as I grew up, and now I teach it to my kids. However, I know why I'm dedicated to working with the county and being next door to me and working with community to restoration is because also my community need to know how to mālama, or what I see is great. Yeah, for them, they want to be naked on the beach, but for me, it's a viable resource that we mālama this way, but they don't know. Yeah, and so for me is if you don't have kuleana or you don't know, then ask. If you don't have no reason to be there, then don't go. But if you do go, be respectful and be humble, because the place, the ʻāina, and its people are still there. Yeah, and just like us, Like Donna Kuyo said, "Wa mau ke ea o ka ʻāina I ka pono." Is because the life of the land is perpetuated in righteousness. The life of my kupuna ʻāina is perpetuated in righteousness as well. So act accordingly. This is how we should behave. When we're growing up, my grandfather said, if you don't like that being done at your house, then, don't allow it to be done. And when these people come over and they start doing this over here, you better go tell them. You cannot do that. And so for me, a lot of things in how or what to be is those simple things that is a lot to me. When you go somewhere, have aloha. And aloha don't mean, love, just that, but have respect, have enough love for yourself and your kupuna and your ohana to then present and be the greater part of who you are. And in my life, in kids, I hope that I can do my best to inspire them to do the great things of who they are. Yeah, and how great we are. So much great things.
Yeah, so mahalo for sharing. We good things to remind, because I know there's a whole generation of people out there, young people and people from all over the world who have that I do what I like, mentality, and that is really not a Hawaiian way of thinking. Yeah, like in when you talk about the old days, and for people who are truly connected and invested in ʻāina, and ʻāina, the land that raises you and sustains you. Over time, we then develop that relationship. Yeah, and when we develop that relationship, then we develop that love for that land, the aloha ʻāina, and then in time we understand our kuleana to take care of it, right? So could you talk a little bit about for people who are out there and they want to start, they want to start understanding, like to begin a journey on a practice, like that's something we've said at the summit. We hope you begin a journey on a practice. What would you tell them? How would they get started in identifying where they fit in the world?
I think when identifying a practice, you get a paper and pencil out. Yeah.
Okay, everybody, get paper and pencil.
Yeah, right. Okay. And take some notes.
Okay, take some notes. Here we go.
Take some notes, because it's just a real good. It's data collecting, so we can come up with something. And so one of the things is Waiwai. Like, who are you? Like, are you? Wai means who. Wai means water. Wai means resource. So who are you in who you are? Like for me, I like to be at the ocean, but I like fresh water. I like to be. But who are you in the things you do? I like to read. I like to read different things. I like my hair out. But who are you? I'm a teacher. I'm a Mahiʻai. I do Lawaiʻa. I do things Hawaiian. I like to sing. But who are you? Waiwai. When jot them down. All the great things that you are. All the awesomeness in your beingness. What makes you happy? Yeah. What is that of you? Waiwai. Like, who are you? Yeah.
So take some time to think about that question, Waiwai. So who you? Yeah. And then is what is there more to that statement?
Yeah. And then the next you're gonna gather like Waiwai, who are you and your family? Yeah. So if you think about your family is canoe builders, or your ohana did this, or my kupuna was in the valley where there's lo'i, like what is that of your family? What is it that your family did or get together? Yeah. What are the things that your family talk about? All the great things. Yeah. And we want to exemplify the greater things of who we are. Yes, we all have issues. We have little things.
Everybody get dirty laundry,
things, right? And my grandfather and my grandmother say, "Hey, you got nothing nice to say. Shut your mouth."
Yeah.
Because we want to then put your words is your mama, and where you put your words and what we speak about ourselves and our family and things should be on your great things, because that's important. Yeah. And then the other thing is, or what is it of your your oihana, or the things that you work at, or your skill sets, yeah, and those skill sets, and so in that, formulating a nice platform on who you are. And then you're gonna get a piece of paper, or think about your ʻāina, your space, your house, or your yard, or there's something in your life or somewhere where you always navigate to, that you naturally pull to. Yeah, like me, I get naturally pulled to one part of, when I'm at home, to one place, and I sit there and ponder. Where is this place that you sit and you ponder and you think about, or you feel good, or you think and you ponder, you release. Sometimes you cry, but that happy space in your house, yeah. And where is that? Yeah. And even if you're in an apartment, even if you're in a house, if you're outside in your yard, but there is somewhere that connects you to, I want to say, your higher self. And where is that in yourself? Then you're gonna go and get a compass, or some of you may know where your sunrise. Where is your east? Where is the east of your space? Where is the west of your space? And find your cardinal directions. So something in even in like in our growing, that no matter where we are, yeah, and this is something that we when I was young, no matter where you are, if you know where you're at, you're gonna know where you're going. And even though you're out there, you know where home is. Yeah. And I have a passion for sailing as well, and I didn't get into it because there are other things I rather do. However, one of the things I learned one time was, you go and you learn navigations and stars of where you're at first, at home, in your yard, at your house. Where is the Milky Way in conjunction to where you live? Which direction is the sun rising and the moon rising to where you live? Because you want to know that wherever you're at, you can come home. Yeah, and we focus on that. So even in that little station, the knowing of your cardinals is really knowing where you're at and where is it, your direction. So, but then you find your east, west, and your cardinals, but then find east, because east is really important to us and important to a lot of people all over the world. In Japan, and in Dubai, in the Middle East, they all face east. Everybody face east. It's because not just because of the sunrise, but it's the start of a lot of great days. That is the greatest movement, our kaniholani of that akua that rises every day, and then the mahina rises every day. Everything rises, and the stars rise up in the east. Therefore, we always look to the east. Yeah, and looking east and facing east, it helps us to then get in alignment with those things. Yeah, get in alignment. And if you're on the west side, say we look west, because there's the same where it's going to go down, and we're really aligning ourselves up with what we call the akua. And akuas are yes, the greater God and one that force, and to ever you boom shakalaka to awesome. But the akuas are also those things or elements that Kanaka cannot create. Cannot create the sun, the moon, the stars, the wind, the things. So these elemental things that we call akua are also significant parts of our life that we like to align to. And we look to the east because it all rises and comes out of the ocean, right? So and find your east and find that cardinal direction. And with that, we get to align ourselves up. Yeah. And lining ourselves up, meaning being in balance, being in tune. A lot of, I think, our presenters today have a lot to the similarity in those things, and how do we, looking at how we behave or in our journey, in our movement. Sometimes we get out of whack, but this is a very great way every day to line yourself up and get centered, get aligned. Yeah, and it's something you do to give thanks, to give say pule, say oli, and to ground ourselves and align ourselves up with the elemental things. So therefore, we can start our journey and move forward in our days. So now that you have your data of Waiwai and all that, but really take a good look at it, because that's who you are, and get a better understanding of all the great things you do, and get an understanding that everything is in our DNA. I know Ed was a very good advocate for ancestral memory and ancestral ike papalua, and these things that was very significant to our everyday living. That our Kūpuna talk to us and communicate to us to that, to the greater self. So when we can sit and navigate and be in alignment, we can better understand and hear ourselves.
So when you're saying Waiwai and this process that you're taking us through, you don't necessarily have to be Kanaka Maoli or Native Hawaiian. You can be anybody. It's connecting and thinking about what are you good at, where are you from, what are the things that contribute to who you are and the richness that is you. So wherever you come from, whatever you're into, these are the things that Kumu Kapukini would like you to write down. And sometimes we don't realize, but maybe we don't even know who our ohana is, but we're really inclined to do certain things. Maybe I had a friend who was adopted, and he never knew his birth parents. Well, he was really into the ocean, and come to find out later, he found out who his ohana was on his father's side, and he was like this long line of people who were seafarers, and it's just like, it's amazing what we have inside of us, like you're saying what Uncle Ed would teach. So going through this process, regardless of who you are or where you're from, we can all go through this process to identify what we're meant to do.
Yeah, that's the goal, is to be in alignment of who you are, and by way of your ohana and your natural state of being. I can only be myself. I learned through my processes that I go here. Why is it that I always learn to be in this place, or why did I navigate? But we all have like a skill set or a journey or a likeness to us or a gift that will then drive us to a certain direction. And it's important that, for me, I've learned to follow that. Yeah. And sometimes we're not following that, we get conflict with our internal self. We're not in alignment with our higher self, but also there's a learning there. There's something that we're supposed to learn along the way, and it's all good. Not about it, but understand that who you are is great. And why am I liking the water so much? Yes, my family was Mahiʻai and Lawaiʻa. Why do I turn to this? Or even though I say, oh, it was me all the time, I created this. I know for sure now, at my great age of youngness, that I'm like this because who I am in the generation before. What's important today is how do I navigate to my everyday, to stay in alignment, to stay in connection to the greater forces that are who I am, and how do I stay to the ʻāina and the things that my Kūpuna is passionate about, because it makes me feel good. And I got nothing to do but do that. I committed to it. I got no choice. There you go. And not fight it, but embrace it. Embrace those greatness. And so even in the gathering who you are, then you take that and then think that space and place. And if you can go to it now, awesome. And face east. And something that I was taught too while working and doing different things since '99 with the Ipsy and different things, and learning Na'aumakua. And Na'aumakua is a pule that a lot of us do now, that was taught for many years now. It comes out of David Malo. And Na'aumakua is a pule that helps us connect to the aumakua, which are our ancestors of the past. It was told to me when I was little, and as I grew up, it was always told to me that our kupuna guides us from our intuitive stuff, our ike papa lua, people call it, or our na'au. But these knowings of our intuition really is connected to our kupuna. And our au makua, au is my, makua is parents. And you really think about how much people that has is behind us, my mother's mother, you know, and how much ohana we have. And yes, you know, we may not know the connections for some of us, may not be of Hawaii, but there is a connection to ʻāina somewhere where you're Hawaiian, and there's a culture in you. And you're connected to the land, to the earth somehow. So understand that this pule talks about that, how to connect. And so my hopes is that you get into your space and your place and to center so you can hear yourself and you can you feel what you feel inside. And I'm sure a lot of you meditate, and I'm sure a lot of you have a space already. And if you don't, create one. And if you need help, just face these, you know. But then the pule talks about your aumakua. Na aumakua mai kala hiki a kala kau. And it talks about my ancestors are aumakua of kala hiki a kala kau, from the east to the west. Ya ka kau I kalani, those that are above us in the heavens. Na aumakua mai kala hiki a kala kau, mai ka ho'okui a ka hala wai. Ho'okui is a space where the suns and the planets and meet, and they all meet. Halavai means to meet. Yeah. Mai ka ho'okui a ka halavai. Na aumakua mai kala hiki a kala kau, mai ka ho'okui a ka halavai. Na aumakua ia ka hina kua of my back, ia ka hina alo of my front. And calling on your kupuna from around you. Na alo ya ka'akau I kalani, the ka'akau, and those that travel with us. So imagine, they're with us all the time. Our kupuna is with us all the time. Now, when we have relationship and you start to address them or ask them the questions or call upon them, you can get your answer. Sometimes in dreams, sometimes in somebody else, sometimes you're gonna get, and that's the awesomeness about being who we are. Yeah. O kiha I kalani, o we kalani, nunulu I kalani, ka'aholo I kalani, and the reverberance and the thunder and in the energies and all these things are of who we are. In our knowing and learning of the kumulipo and our genealogy, all these things are spoken of. From the beginning of the kumulipo, all the essence of the moon, the sun, the stars, all these elementals, the veli of the vale of the ʻāina, the lava, the pele, are all these things that make up who we are. And in this only way you can understand who we are in the kumulipo. You get the chance to look up kumulipo, look up the genealogy. Look up, it's 3,000 some lines of oli. However, Martha Bedwick does have a great way of putting it, but all not true. But just take that and look at it and get the little. You can learn a lot. It's ongoing. However, you can then better understand when we talk about where we come from and the aumakuas that come before us and how much is that and what those things look like. So that's that. And it says, "Eia nā pula pula au ko ohana." I use ko ohana, my family. Yeah, e mālama o ko ia mākou to take care of us, to mālama us. And then e ulu I kalani, to grow in the heavens. E ulu I ka honua, to grow on the land. E ulu I ka pai ʻāina o Hawaii, to grow along the pai ʻāina of Hawaii. And Hawaiians were very our Kūpuna are very creative, intellectual, and also learn and talk in imageries. So even though there's literal, you can sit on and have a perspective of imagery when they say pai ʻāina. When you think about pai ʻāina, yeah, in your knowing of not just people, but also the core and the living things and the trees and the native trees and the insects, and really take note that pai ʻāina mean a lot of things. And then the next verse goes, uli kalani, uli ka honua, uli ka pai ʻāina Hawaii, ho mai. And at ho mai, at the end, talks about granting to ask. Ho mai ka ike, I ask of knowledge. Ho mai ka ikaika, to ask for strength. Ho mai ka akamai, to ask for the smartness, intellect. Ho mai ka akamai, ho mai ka mapopopono, to ask for understanding. Ho mai ka ike pāpālua, to ask for the internal strength and spiritual knowing. And ho mai ka mana, to ask for that powerful mana. And so this pule is addressing all the aumakuas that we live amongst, no matter whether you're here, Africa, Jamaica, but there is those greater elements that we call our aumakuas that nurture us. And we're asking them to be with, to help grow our ʻāina and our things, to help us grow ourselves, to give us wisdom and knowledge. So it's a great pule. It goes like this. I'll do it once. I think after they have some things to show and maybe put up a slide or something. But it goes like this. Na au makua mai kala hiki a kala kau. Mai ka hoʻoku ia ka hala mai. Na au makua ia ka hina akua ia ka hina alo ia ka akakau I kalani. O ki ha I kalani, o we kalani, nunuli kalani, ka holo I kalani. Eia nā pula pula a o ko ohana mālama o ko ia mākou. Uli kalani, uli ka honua, uli ka pai ʻāina o Hawaii. Ho mai ka ike, ho mai ka ikaika, ho mai ke akamai, ho mai ka mapopopono, ho mai ka ike pāpālua, ho mai ka mana. Amama ua no. Yeah. Amama ua noa means it has been said, and the words has been ulele. It has been said and given, and as a closure. And then pa'i pa'i is usually a notion or a sound that we give to close and seal our pule. So it's a beautiful only practice it in your space. Always think about or meditate in your knowing in who you are, because you are amazing, and to always know that our Kūpuna is always with us and guiding us. Yeah. Even though they may left this earth, our ancestors still sit amongst us and watch over us and are there. If we don't cultivate it, if we don't call upon it, if we don't give notion, then they're not gonna, however.
If you don't call, they're not gonna show up. Yeah. Yeah.
And so to invite them, and if they come, cool. But it has helped me in my journey. This pule has always been, it's my everyday thing, my family everyday thing, but it really does set up to be in alignment, to be grounded, to be connected to the ʻāina, to the akua, to each other, and really helps to also bring our Kūpuna in our daily lives. And I don't know any greater way to be and live than the way. It's great. You haven't heard it before, you can check out the literals, and it's great, but don't just take the literal for what it is, but understand it for yourself. And if you don't know the olelo, I encourage you to go and look up what the words mean. So when you're speaking it, you know what you say, and then you can have and connect to those spaces and places and those Kūpuna that sit there amongst us.
Mahalo Kapukini. So for those of you out there, Heidi, that's the link to the resource folder that you put. Yeah. Okay. So in the chat, Heidi, our tech whiz, has put the link to the the text. Okay, and I'm gonna drop another link in here too, which is the link to the entire file and in there. So I just dropped it in. So in there, there's a video that has the text on there, as well as you can hear the leo, the voice of Kapukini as she's saying the oli. There's a link to the text, the one that Heidi dropped, as well as there's another recording of Kapukini doing the oli, and then with an explanation of it at the end. So we offer those to you as a resource. And again, the hope is that you will use this pule to help you acknowledge the aumakua, the ancestors who are with you at all times, wherever you are. And if you're living someplace that maybe you're not in your homeland, just know that there are kupuna with you all the time. Those ancestors, those aumakua are traveling with you at all times. And
that data that you collected can help you build your practice. Okay. Because no matter what, there's so much practices and so much of our kupuna did. And I stay to Lawaiʻa and Mahiʻai because I teach youth, but those are to me the foundations of who we are. But every practice connects us to ʻāina. Yeah, every practice. And so that data collection has a lot to do with looking at who you are and your likeness, and then finding the things that you really like, the practice that you are probably who you are. Yeah, and so that gathering of Waiwai, what your family did, is a good way, and what lands they come from is a good way to find out who you are in your practice. Because I can honestly say, when I was doing all these great things in college, later I found out in my mo'okua hau that my grandmother was born in Waipio. Before I even knew it, I was already there. My grandfather, his name was Kūpuna. He's my connections to Kaho'olawe. There's a lot of things to Puna that I later on started to be naturally, but later on found out that it is in my DNA, that it was there before I even knew it. And so I hope the same for you, to look at those things. And when we talk about building practice, when we talk about then how we should be and behave, but then this way we look at ease and the pule to do in your mornings or anytime you need to call upon your kupuna, but to have it as an instrument so that you can align yourself up. You can get connected in these ways and then develop your practice and really and be ba'a. Yeah, and have aloha for yourself and your ohana and your kupuna, because we're well loved as people.
Mahalo Kapukini. So for those of you out there, Kumu has given us three assignments. One is the Owaiʻoi, so finding out who you are, where you come from, what is given, what is in your past, in your history, and then also what you engage in. And then the second one was to find a place to panana, a place to sit and to observe in. It can be in your home, your apartment, wherever you are. It can be outside at the park, some place where you like to go and sit and feel at peace and calm, and to just observe, to come back to center. Yeah, that place to kilo and observe the world closely and to align yourself. And that can be your place to come back to recalibrate, and come back to that center.
Sorry. So when I was growing up, my grandparents used to always say, when we act up, they send us to the yard, get outside, go 2 weeks, get out of here, go outside, And so when you're growing up, you're like, I was like, they don't really grow up great, and my cousins. But later I learned it's because we're out of alignment when we kolohe. There's some kind of conflict. So you need to get outside and go realign yourself. So that the notion of sitting in ease and looking at nature, even though, it might be one tree in your house, or I don't know where you're at in the world, or go to a park, is a very healthy thing to get realignment, like you were saying.
Yeah, mahalo. And then again, the third thing, after we find that place, and every day we go back to it, and we keep coming back to realign and to focus and meditate and observe, we are then also going to learn aumakua. as a way to ask that which we cannot see, but that we know is there, yeah, to help guide our footsteps so that we're walking on the path that we're supposed to be. Mahalo for sharing, Kapukini. We have mahalo. We have time for a few questions. Christy, were there any questions that came into the chat? Anyone, if you'd like to ask anything, we have some time right now, so we'd like to open it up to chat. And Kapukini, they're just basically it's just flowing with mahalos in the chat. But if anybody would like to unmute or to type in the chat a question, please, now's your time to ask if you'd like.
Check us out too at Pohoiki.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, come down to Pohoiki and Deep Puna, yeah, Puna Makai. Okay.
Our current restoration project, working with things.
Yeah, so and you guys can come and you guys can contribute and develop that relationship with ʻāina. And then
Saturdays every month.
Second Saturday every month.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock in the morning, second Saturday. So mark it on your calendars.
South side of Pohoiki Beach Park.
South side of Pohoiki Beach Park.
Park.
Okay, so please come down and in developing that relationship with your ʻāina wherever you are, whether it's at your panana or coming down to second Saturdays at Pohoiki Beach Park, you develop your relationship with ʻāina, and in doing that, you develop kuleana, and that is how we begin a path towards becoming a practitioner. Oh, we have a question. Okay.
The question was, do you folks have a website or social media to follow your work?
Well, yes, we do. We have a Facebook page and we have a website too. You can look it up. Makahaloa o Waipi'o and Namakahaloa actually.
Namakahaloa.
Namakahaloa o Waipi'o, yeah.
Namakahaloa o Waipi'o.
And Namakahaloa, we have a Facebook. Been since 2001. I'm third generation to mālama, the kuleana. Did many projects on island. So I was at one time a mentee. Today I was honored to be gifted the kuleana to take over mālama, the nonprofit. So it's ongoing, so many things. We have a great amount of partnerships too with different nonprofits and really doing ʻāina-based work, and teaching our greater communities on how that looks like. Because the fighting and no go there and the science is all good, but when we can get better understanding in our community and teaching people that don't know. And have them work alongside with us, we build better communities, and so that's our goal. Because for me, Hawaiian or not, you live Hawaii, you have kuleana, and our Kūpuna, and we have a way to do it. And if we don't teach, then we're gonna get to where we need to be. And it is about our resource, our ʻāina and our wai, and those things that we thrive on. Our Kūpuna say, "Makahana ka ike," and also they say, my uncle Bill, Hale, he said, he never speak Hawaii, but I put it into Hawaii. But pretty much is, if you don't kanu today, you're not gonna eat tomorrow. And so you for us, yeah. Kanu ike yela aole hiki oike ai apupo. So it's pretty much our motto. And something we try to live by. Whether we kanu our ike or kanu ana au by way of pule, we cultivate who we are as people of Hawaii. It's hard for us to be able to eat and consume the greatness tomorrow. Yeah. So, mahalo.
Yeah, deep thoughts. Mahalo, Ana Kapukini. I appreciate you sharing, all of these perspectives. And yeah, it's so important for us to continue to constantly learn, constantly grow, and to gather the ike and the mana'o of those kupuna who are willing to share. And I would never say that you're a kupuna, but you certainly have the ano of a kupuna, and I know you've taken a lot of time to learn and to gather, and then you freely share in a very inclusive way. Not all people or practitioners share with just everyone, but I know you personally, and I really respect how you're kind and you have aloha for all, and I think that's what we need in the world, to continue to learn and to continue to gather, practice, and share, and teach all people, how to behave, about Lawena, how we behave in Hawaii, that's, regardless of where you're from, we all have kuleana to understand how the culture is here, and mahalo for helping us connect to who we are and what we're destined to be, whether we have.
The greatest kumu is the kumu Ana.
Oh, that's beautiful. I like that one.
Besides, I love all my kumus and mentors. So ʻāina has taught me more than any kumu has, honestly. So we can connect and be there. Awesome.
Yeah. So if there is no more questions, and I'm going to do our housekeeping. And so in our housekeeping, this is for our summit. So just some quick announcements. So mahalo nui loa to you, Ana Kapukini Kon, for sharing your ike and time with us today. We want to thank everybody for joining us here today. And yeah, we hope that you found a moment to simply breathe and just take in some of the wisdom offered today through the sharing of our Hawaiian cultural practices, our kuana ike Hawaii, the perspective in which we view the world as Hawaiians. Mahalo nui to everyone. Ahui ho.
Aloha.